New York Yankees. The New York Yankees did not begin as a powerhouse or even a New York team. In 1901, the franchise started in Baltimore and struggled badly before relocating to Manhattan in 1903. They were officially called the Highlanders, a reference to their elevated ballpark, but newspapers quickly shortened the name for headlines. Yankees was never meant to be permanent. It was convenient. That accident became destiny. As championships accumulated, the word Yankees stopped describing geography and started signaling dominance. It sounded national, confident, and unavoidable. Winning became assumed, not celebrated. The name carried pressure instead of charm. Players weren't joining a club, they were joining a standard. Over time, Yankees stopped needing explanation. It meant stars, money, October baseball, and expectation baked into the uniform. Other franchises chase eras. The Yankees built permanence. What began as shorthand turned into mythology. In sports, few names demand greatness by default. Yankees does, and it has for more than a century. Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox didn't begin with Red Sox or even a real nickname. When the team joined the American League in 1901, they wore dark blue and were called the Americans, or simply Boston. Everything changed in 1907. When the city's National League team abandoned red stockings, owner John Taylor seized the opportunity. He leaned fully into red, redesigning uniforms and identity at the same time. The spelling Red Sox wasn't creative branding. It was a space-saving decision for newspaper headlines, but the name stuck because it fit the city. Red Sox sounded emotional, stubborn, and loud, just like Boston baseball. Over time, the name absorbed heartbreak, frustration, and eventually redemption. It helped define a rivalry built on contrast. Yankees felt untouchable. Red Sox felt defiant. Even through decades without titles, the name carried pride. In Boston, the Sox stopped being fabric and became symbolism. Loyalty, suffering, and belief stitched into a uniform that never stopped meaning something, no matter how long the wait lasted. Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs earned their name by accident, and it perfectly captured who they were. Early Chicago teams were called the White Stockings, then the Colts, then the Orphans after star manager Cap Anson left. Each name reflected instability and youth. In 1902, with a roster full of young players, newspapers started calling them the Cubs. It wasn't official, it was descriptive. Writers were narrating a rebuild in real time. Cubs sounded hopeful instead of broken. That mattered. The name stuck because fans embraced it. Wrigley Field eventually turned it into something timeless. Over decades of losing, Cubs stopped meaning youth and started meaning loyalty. The name softened failure without excusing it. It made waiting feel communal. When the championship drought finally ended in 2016, Cubs no longer meant unfinished. The nickname survived eras, heartbreak, and history because it never promised dominance. It promised belonging. And in Chicago, that proved more powerful than winning ever alone. St. Louis Cardinals. The St. Louis Cardinals didn't choose their name, a fan did. In 1899, the team rebranded as the Perfectos and introduced new red-trimmed uniforms. A local columnist overheard a woman describe the color as a lovely shade of cardinal. He printed it. Fans embraced it instantly. By 1900, Cardinals became official. Cardinals fans are baseball's traditionalists, respectful, loyal, and just a little smug about it. They believe they love the game the right way, and honestly, they might. The city breathes fundamentals and history, from Stan Musial to Molina to Arenado. There's pride and consistency, but lately, cracks have formed. Losing seasons sting more in St. Louis because excellence feels like entitlement. The fan base isn't angry, it's confused, wondering where the Cardinal way went. Still, Busch Stadium buzzes with optimism every spring. Their patience might waver, but their presence never does. In St. Louis, baseball isn't entertainment, it's identity, and they'll protect it like a family heirloom. St. Louis didn't just keep a nickname, they protected a philosophy, and it kept paying off. San Francisco Giants. The Giants began in New York long before California entered the picture. Founded in 1883 as the Gothams, the team was soon called the Giants after their manager praised his players as "my Giants," following a big win. The name fit. It suggested power and confidence. When the franchise moved west in 1958, the identity traveled with it. Giants felt universal, not regional. In San Francisco, the name took on new meaning. It became about presence, intimidation, and moments. From Willie Mays to Barry Bonds, Giants baseball centered on stars who felt larger than life. Championships followed, reinforcing the name's weight. Even in down years, Giants implied relevance. It wasn't about speed or flair. It was about scale. The franchise didn't chase modern branding. Giants already sounded timeless. That simplicity allowed the team to evolve without losing itself. In baseball, few names feel as imposing without explanation. Giants never needed context. The name told the story before the game even started. Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers carry one of baseball's most location-specific names, even though they left that location behind. In Brooklyn, pedestrians constantly dodge streetcars, earning the nickname Trolley Dodgers. The baseball team embraced it in 1911. The name captured movement, grit, and urban life. When the franchise moved to Los Angeles in 1958, logic suggested a rebrand. Instead, the Dodgers kept the name, honoring Brooklyn's identity from across the country. That decision mattered. Dodgers became a bridge between past and future. In Los Angeles, the name transformed from survival to development. Homegrown talent became the franchise hallmark. The identity stayed intact because it wasn't about geography anymore. It was about approach. Dodgers came to represent resilience, patience, and reinvention without forgetting origins. Even today, the name feels oddly perfect for both cities. Brooklyn gave it soul, Los Angeles gave it scale. Few franchises move without losing meaning. The Dodgers moved and became bigger without losing the heartbeat that created them. Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles name predates the modern franchise by decades, making it deeply rooted in Baltimore history. When the St. Louis Browns relocated in 1954, the new ownership revived the Orioles nickname, honoring earlier Baltimore teams from the 1890s and early 1900s. The choice connected past and present instantly. Orioles referenced the state bird and mirrored the orange and black colors associated with Maryland's identity. The name felt local, not imported. That mattered to a city regaining Major League Baseball. Success followed quickly, validating the decision. Orioles baseball became defined by pitching, defense, and development. The name sounded graceful but competitive, reflecting balance. Over generations, it carried pride through both dominance and decline. Even during rebuilding eras, Orioles never felt disconnected from place. The nickname anchored the franchise culturally. Unlike relocations that erase history, Baltimore leaned into it. Orioles wasn't new, it was restored. That restoration gave fans ownership. In baseball, names can manufacture identity or inherit it. The Orioles inherited something real, and that authenticity has kept the franchise relevant even through long cycles of change. Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers is one of baseball's most literal and successful regional identities. Milwaukee's connection to beer production dates back to the 1800s, long before Major League Baseball arrived. When teams played in the city during the 19th century, Brewers emerged organically as a nickname. It became official multiple times across leagues. When the Seattle Pilots relocated to Milwaukee in 1970, reviving Brewers was inevitable. The name fit instantly. Brewers sounded local, proud, and honest. It didn't try to intimidate, it invited community. Over time, the glove logo and beer references reinforced the connection. Brewers baseball leaned into loyalty over flash. Championships were rare, but identity never wavered. Fans embraced the name because it represented who they were, not who they wanted to be. Even as the franchise modernized, Brewers remained timeless. It grounded the team in the city's heritage. In a league filled with abstract branding, Milwaukee's name felt refreshingly direct. Brewers didn't need explanation. Everyone understood it immediately. That clarity gave the franchise staying power. The name wasn't chosen to sound strong. It was chosen because it was true. Minnesota Twins. The Twins were named to avoid division. When the Washington Senators relocated to Minnesota in 1961, Minneapolis and St. Paul both wanted ownership of the franchise. Rather than alienate either city, the team adopted Twins, representing the Twin Cities collectively. The decision was unprecedented. Teams were rarely named after concepts instead of places. Twins worked because it symbolized unity. The logo reinforced it, showing two players shaking hands across the Mississippi River. Over time, the name grew beyond geography. Twins baseball became associated with balance, fundamentals, and consistency. The franchise produced stars and contenders across decades without dramatic identity shifts. Twins never sounded aggressive, but it sounded inclusive. That mattered. Fans across the state felt represented. The name carried subtle pride rather than bravado. Even as ballparks changed and eras shifted, Twins remained fitting. It reflected cooperation in a sport often driven by ego. Minnesota embraced that difference. Twins baseball wasn't about dominance. It was about cohesion. The name survived because it solved a problem and created identity simultaneously. Few franchises were named so diplomatically and succeeded so naturally because of it. Houston Astros. The Astros were born at the intersection of baseball and ambition. Originally named the Colt 45s in 1962, the franchise rebranded before moving into the Astrodome in 1965. Houston's association with NASA and the space race made Astros inevitable. The name signaled modernity, progress, and scale. It wasn't nostalgic. It was forward-looking. Astros sounded futuristic in a league rooted in tradition. That distinction shaped the franchise's identity. Playing in a domed stadium reinforced the theme. Over time, Astros baseball became linked to innovation. For better or worse, championships validated the ambition, while controversy tested credibility. Still, the name held. Astros never felt outdated because it was designed to represent advancement. Even after eras changed, space exploration remained symbolic of Houston's identity. The franchise leaned into that symbolism consistently. Astros isn't tied to animals or history, it's tied to aspiration. That makes it rare in baseball. The name promises evolution. Whether embraced or criticized, Astros baseball always feels modern. Few franchises built identity around the future and stayed relevant long enough for that future to arrive. Kansas City Royals. The Royals were named through community participation, and that shaped everything that followed. When Kansas City received an expansion team in 1969, a Name the Team contest produced Royals, referencing the American Royal Livestock Show. The name symbolized excellence, tradition, and pride rather than monarchy. Royals sounded aspirational without arrogance. That balance mattered. The franchise embraced a clean, classic identity that resonated immediately. Early success validated the choice, and later championship eras reinforced it. Royals baseball came to represent fundamentals, speed, and cohesion. The name fit because it emphasized quality over dominance. In a smaller market, that tone worked. Royals didn't try to intimidate, they tried to belong. Even during long stretches without success, the name carried dignity. It never felt forced. When championships returned, the identity felt earned rather than manufactured. Royals proved that community-driven branding could last. The name survived because it wasn't trendy. It was rooted in place and purpose. In baseball, longevity comes from alignment. Kansas City aligned its identity with its culture, and the Royals became inseparable from the city that named them. Toronto Blue Jays. The Blue Jays entered Major League Baseball in 1977 as Canada's first modern franchise, and their name was chosen deliberately to sound bold but familiar. A public naming contest produced Blue Jays, referencing the aggressive North American bird known for intelligence and territorial pride. Blue also aligned with Toronto's existing sports culture. The name wasn't flashy, it was confident. Early struggles didn't slow momentum. By the early 1990s, the Blue Jays became a powerhouse, winning back-to-back World Series titles in 1992 and 1993. That success cemented the name internationally. Blue Jays came to represent Canada itself, not just a city. The bird symbolized toughness in harsh conditions, which resonated north of the border. Even during rebuilding eras, the identity remained intact. Blue Jays baseball carried national weight. The name worked because it scaled upward. It felt local enough to embrace and broad enough to represent an entire country. Few teams shoulder that responsibility. Toronto's name wasn't just branding, it became national identity stitched into a uniform. Washington Nationals. Baseball in Washington has been defined by loss and return. The city cycled through Senators teams before losing baseball entirely in 1971. When the Montreal Expos relocated in 2005, Washington needed a name that acknowledged history without repeating it. Nationals was chosen as a clean reset. It referenced earlier Washington teams while sounding modern and official. Nationals felt civic, not nostalgic. That mattered in a city built on symbolism. Early seasons were rough, but the identity never wavered. The name grew alongside the franchise. By 2019, the Nationals completed one of the most improbable championship runs in baseball history, winning the World Series on the road every round. That title validated the rebrand completely. Nationals baseball became synonymous with resilience and belief. The name fit a team that survived relocation skepticism and early irrelevance. Nationals doesn't imply dominance. It implies representation. In Washington, that distinction matters. The franchise finally became permanent by choosing a name rooted in place rather than past failure. Baseball didn't just return to Washington, it established itself. Texas Rangers. The Rangers name carries history far beyond baseball. When the Washington Senators relocated to Arlington in 1972, ownership chose Rangers to honor the legendary Texas law enforcement group. The name immediately felt regional and authoritative. Rangers sounded independent, rugged, and distinctly Texan. That identity shaped the franchise. Early years were inconsistent, but the name always carried weight. It suggested order and enforcement in a chaotic sport. Over time, Rangers baseball became associated with power hitting and resilience. The name wasn't abstract, it was historical. That grounded the team culturally. Even through heartbreak, including multiple World Series losses, the identity held. In 2023, Texas finally won its first championship, completing a decades-long arc. That victory made the name feel earned. Rangers wasn't chosen for flair, it was chosen to represent tradition and authority. In a state proud of its symbols, the name resonated deeply. Texas Rangers baseball became inseparable from Texas identity itself. When success finally arrived, it felt inevitable rather than surprising. The name had promised strength all along. Los Angeles Angels. The Angels name predates the franchise itself. Long before Major League Baseball arrived, Los Angeles hosted a minor league team called the Angels, drawing directly from the city's Spanish name. When the American League expanded in 1961, reviving Angels felt natural. The name carried history, language, and geography in one word. Over decades, ownership complicated it. California Angels, Anaheim Angels, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, the identity blurred, but the core remained. Angels sounded hopeful and celestial, contrasting sharply with the grind of baseball. That contrast defined the franchise. Even without sustained dominance, the name carried optimism. Generational stars reinforced it. Angels baseball became associated with individual brilliance rather than dynasties. Eventually, the team reverted back to Los Angeles Angels, restoring simplicity. The name worked best when it wasn't over-explained. Angels didn't need edge. It needed clarity. In a crowded market, the franchise survived branding confusion by leaning back into origin. The name has always fit. It just needed room to breathe without modifiers. Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies have one of the simplest names in baseball, and that simplicity is their strength. Founded in 1883, the team was originally called the Quakers before becoming the Philadelphia. Phillies emerged naturally as shorthand, and by 1890 it became official. Phillies baseball has always been personal, emotional, and demanding. The name invites ownership from fans who feel connected to the city itself. Over decades of frustration and flashes of success, Phillies never sounded corporate. It sounded local. Attempts to change the name failed because nothing fit better. When championships finally came, the payoff felt earned because the identity never shifted. Phillies didn't chase trends. They stayed grounded. In a sport full of mythic branding, Philadelphia leaned into authenticity. The name reflects that. Short, blunt, and unmistakable. Phillies baseball isn't about elegance. It's about honesty. The name survived because it never tried to be more than what the city already was. Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates were named as an insult. In the late 1800s, Pittsburgh signed players other teams claimed unfairly, prompting accusations that they were pirating talent. Writers meant it as criticism. The team embraced it. Pirates fans are the quiet survivors of MLB, hopeful yet hardened. They've seen promise collapse too many times to count, yet they still fill PNC Park with that golden glow of optimism. There's humility here, no arrogance, just honest fandom. They know ownership's flaws and still cheer for every spark of life. The view of downtown, the bridges, the skyline, it's all part of their baseball ritual. Winning feels like a gift, not a guarantee, and that makes every moment special. They don't expect championships, they expect effort. Pirates fans aren't loud, they're lasting. Through losses and lean years, they stay proud of the black and gold. Because giving up, that's never been in their playbook. The Pirates didn't just accept the label, they weaponized it. And the name has never let anyone forget where it came from. Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds traced their name to the first openly professional baseball team in history. In 1869, the Cincinnati Red Stockings paid every player and dominated the sport. That choice changed baseball forever. Reds fans are baseball's time travelers, living in the present but forever anchored to the glory of the past. The Big Red Machine isn't just nostalgia, it's a living standard that defines their pride. Great American Ballpark hums with that legacy. Families passing down stories of Rose, Bench, and Morgan like scripture. Even in rough seasons, fans hold tight to that identity. Hardworking, proud, and loyal to the last out. There's comfort in tradition, in the crack of the bat against the Ohio River breeze. They might not have the flashiest team, but they've got history. And for Reds fans, that's enough to believe the next great chapter is coming soon. The identity already mattered. Reds is one of baseball's oldest surviving names, not because it evolved, but because it endured pressure and came back unchanged. That survival made it stronger. Detroit Tigers. The Detroit Tigers earned their name through respect, not marketing. In the 1890s, Detroit baseball teams were commonly referred to as the Tigers, inspired by the Detroit Light Guard, a military unit known for discipline and pride. Tigers fans are forged in grit. Detroit's tough, and its fans match that spirit. Blue-collar believers who never stop showing up. They've lived through rebuilds, watched stars come and go, but the loyalty never fades. Comerica Park isn't just a stadium, it's a monument to endurance. Tigers fans love hard, criticize harder, and still hope like it's 1984 again. They carry the city's soul, tough, loyal, and unshakably proud. Every young prospect becomes a new reason to dream. Every rally a glimpse of revival. Even in lean years, the fans roar. Because in Detroit, baseball isn't just tradition, it's defiance. It's proof that no matter how rough things get, you keep swinging. Cleveland Guardians. Cleveland's baseball identity has changed more than most, but its roots run deep. The franchise began in 1901 as the Blues, cycled through names like the Naps, and in 1915 became the Indians, a label that lasted more than a century. Guardians fans are the working-class heartbeat of baseball, modest, loyal, and endlessly patient. They've endured more heartbreaks than celebrations, but they show up anyway. Progressive Field feels like a blue-collar cathedral, full of laughter, grit, and quiet pride. These fans value effort over ego, passion over payroll. They've learned to cheer through rebuilds, savor underdog wins, and hope without expectation. Cleveland baseball isn't glamorous, but it's honest. Every fan in that park carries decades of family memories, of near misses, long summers, and belief that never dies. Guardians fans don't need fame to feel proud. They just need the next pitch, the next chance, and the eternal rhythm of the game they love. Chicago White Sox. The White Sox were born from opportunism and marketing instincts. In 1900, Charles Comiskey relocated the St. Paul Saints to Chicago's South Side and adopted the familiar White Stockings nickname. The name already carried recognition from the Cubs' earlier identities. White Sox fans are the definition of gritty loyalty. Raw, vocal, and fed up with excuses. Living in the Cubs' shadow has hardened them, but it's also made their passion real. Every blown lead feels personal. Every rebuild another test of faith. Yet through it all, they stay loud, proud, and unfiltered. The Southside crowd doesn't do pretense. They want hustle, not headlines. They've seen greatness before. 05 still echoes, and they crave it again. Their bond with the team isn't polished, it's personal. Sox fans love baseball the way Chicago loves pizza. Deep, messy, and full of attitude. And when the team finally delivers, the city shakes from 35th to Wabash. Oakland Athletics. A's fans are rebels with a cause. They cheer and protest, wave banners in defiance, and chant through heartbreak. Their loyalty is a rebellion against greed, relocation, and apathy. These fans love their team so fiercely, they've turned resistance into ritual. The Coliseum may crumble, but their pride doesn't. Sell the team isn't just a slogan, it's a love letter to what baseball should be. Community, tradition, belonging. The green and gold faithful show up not for ownership, but for each other. They are the purest form of fandom, rooting for a team abandoned by everyone except them. And no matter where the franchise goes, Oakland will always own the soul of the Athletics. New York Mets. The Mets were designed to fill a void. After the Dodgers and Giants left New York, the city needed National League Baseball again. When the expansion team launched in 1962, fans were invited to help choose the name. Mets fans are walking emotional contradictions, equal parts hope, heartbreak, and sarcasm. They've seen it all: collapses, chaos, cursed trades, and that one shining miracle in '86. Their optimism is fragile but real. They'll celebrate a walk-off in June like it's October, then immediately worry about the bullpen. The humor is what holds them together. Dark, self-aware, and weirdly inspiring. They meme their pain, roast their owners, and still line up every opening day with fresh belief. It's not delusion, it's devotion. Being a Mets fan means loving baseball despite baseball constantly breaking your heart. And every year, they say the same thing. This time, maybe. Atlanta Braves. The Braves are one of baseball's oldest continuously operating franchises, and their name has traveled through cities and eras. Founded in Boston, the team cycled through multiple identities before becoming the Braves in 1912 under owner James Gaffney. Braves fans are calm confidence personified. There's no panic, no hysteria, just steady faith in another 90-win season and a playoff run that feels inevitable. Decades of division titles and legends like Chipper and Acuna have built a fan base that doesn't need validation. Every tomahawk chop echoes generations of success. And even after tough losses, there's a quiet belief, we'll be back. They've mastered the art of patient pride, blending Southern hospitality with championship standards. When Atlanta wins, it feels like balance restored. When they lose, they shrug. Because deep down, they know this franchise never stays down for long. San Diego Padres. Padres is one of baseball's most culturally specific names. Adopted from the city's Pacific Coast League team, it references San Diego's Spanish missionary roots dating back to 1769. Padres translates to fathers or friars, tying the franchise directly to local history. When San Diego received an expansion team in 1969, the name felt inevitable. Padres baseball embraced the imagery fully, from brown and gold uniforms to the swinging friar mascot. The identity was unique. No other franchise leaned so heavily into regional heritage. Early years were difficult, but the name endured. Padres didn't chase intimidation. They embraced character. Over time, stars and playoff runs added legitimacy, but the identity remained unchanged. Padres baseball became synonymous with patience and loyalty. The name survived long stretches of losing because it belonged to the city, not ownership cycles. When championships remained elusive, fans stayed connected. Padres worked because it wasn't invented. Seattle Mariners. The Mariners were named to match their environment, not their ambition. When Seattle was awarded an expansion franchise in 1977, a public naming contest produced Mariners, referencing the city's deep connection to the sea. Shipping, fishing, and naval industry shaped Seattle long before baseball arrived. Mariners felt natural. It wasn't flashy, it was accurate. That practicality defined the franchise. Mariners baseball became associated with patience, development, and loyalty, rather than instant success. Early struggles reinforced the underdog image, while stars like Griffey gave the name national recognition. Mariners doesn't intimidate, but it travels well. It suggests endurance and navigation, fitting a team that often fought uphill battles. Even without championships, the identity held. Fans embraced the name because it represented where they lived, not what they dreamed of being. Over time, Mariners came to symbolize persistence. Baseball seasons are long. Mariners understood that better than most. The name works because it mirrors the rhythm of the ocean, steady, unpredictable, and relentless. Seattle didn't need a mascot, it needed representation, and Mariners delivered that honestly. Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks were born from expansion and community input. When Arizona received a franchise in the mid-1990s, fans voted on potential names. Options ranged from Scorpions to Coyotes, but Diamondbacks won decisively. The name referenced the rattlesnake native to the desert, dangerous, fast, and unmistakably local. It also avoided redundancy, setting the franchise apart instantly. Diamondbacks sounded aggressive without being generic. The branding leaned heavily into desert imagery, using Sedona red and black to mirror the landscape. Unlike older teams with layered histories, Arizona built identity from scratch. That made early success even more impactful. A World Series title in just the franchise's fourth season validated everything. Diamondbacks became a rare example of modern branding done right. The name never felt forced. It felt earned quickly. Even as the franchise cycled through eras, Diamondbacks remained relevant because it was specific. It couldn't belong anywhere else. In baseball, specificity creates identity. Arizona chose a name tied to geography, danger, and survival, and it gave the franchise instant legitimacy in a league dominated by tradition. Colorado Rockies. The Rockies were named to reflect permanence. When Denver received an expansion team in the early 1990s, ownership wanted a name that felt strong, immovable, and regional. Rockies captured that instantly. The mountains defined Colorado visually and culturally. The name suggested endurance rather than dominance. Rockies baseball leaned into that imagery from day one. Purple uniforms reinforced uniqueness, while Coors Field became known for extremes. Offense exploded, pitching suffered, and the team's identity took shape around unpredictability. Rockies didn't sound intimidating. It sounded massive. That distinction mattered. The name framed the franchise as part of the landscape, not separate from it. Even during long stretches without success, Rockies remained fitting. Fans didn't feel disconnected because the identity never promised easy wins. It promised resilience. In a league filled with animals and abstract concepts, Rockies stood apart by referencing geography itself. The name doesn't age. Mountains don't change. Colorado built a franchise around that idea, trusting stability over spectacle. Rockies baseball may fluctuate, but the name always feels grounded, solid, and impossible to move. Tampa Bay Rays? The Rays began with controversy baked in. Originally named the Devil Rays in 1998, the franchise struggled immediately, both on the field and culturally. The name faced criticism from religious groups and never resonated fully with fans. After nearly a decade of losing, ownership made a clean break. In 2008, Devil was dropped, leaving Rays. The shortened name carried dual meaning. It referenced both stingrays and rays of sunlight, tying into Florida's environment. More importantly, it signaled a reset. That season, Tampa Bay reached the World Series. The coincidence became mythology. Rays baseball transformed into a model of efficiency, analytics, and innovation. The name stopped feeling cursed and started feeling clever. Rays doesn't overpower, it surprises. That fits the franchise perfectly. They win without stars, spend without excess, and thrive on precision. The rebrand proved names matter. Sometimes subtraction creates clarity. Tampa Bay didn't change who they were. They changed how they were perceived. Rays became shorthand for smart baseball, proving identity can evolve without abandoning place. Miami Marlins. The Marlins were built to represent an entire state, then narrowed to a city. Founded in 1993 as the Florida Marlins, the name emphasized coastal identity and regional appeal. Marlins referenced the fish found in Atlantic waters, tying baseball to environment. Early championships gave the name credibility, even as instability followed. In 2012, the franchise rebranded as the Miami Marlins. Aligning fully with the city, the name stayed, but the meaning shifted. Miami's culture influenced everything, from uniforms to color schemes. Bright blues and oranges reflected tropical energy rather than tradition. Marlins baseball became defined by contrast, flashes of success surrounded by long rebuilds. The name survived because it was adaptable. It could represent beaches, fish, and movement. Even when perception lagged, the identity remained flexible. Marlins doesn't demand dominance. It implies speed and volatility. That fits the franchise's history perfectly. In a league where permanence is prized, Miami embraced change. The Marlins name allowed that. It's fluid, modern, and tied to geography without being trapped by it. That flexibility is the franchise's defining trait. If you like this video, consider watching this next one, which YouTube thinks you will love.